her entire life in the village with her parents. At 22 years old and the only child, she had never experienced joy or laughter at home. Her parents were toxic, constantly quarreling and fighting, leaving no room for peace or love in the household. Amaka often thought to herself, I regret ever being born into this family. Her parents showed no concern for her well being, neither caring for her nor providing for her. She frequently had to beg friends and neighbors for food just to have something to eat. Amaka had to fend for herself to ensure she had food to eat and clothes to wear. David Chooks, on the other hand, was born into a family of wealth. As the only child, he was showered with care and affection from his parents, to the point where he sometimes had to remind his mother that he's an adult. David's parents called him daily, showing their constant concern and love. He grew up in a home filled with love and peace, feeling fortunate to have such a supportive parent. Above all, David was known for his extraordinary kindness, which sometimes made his parents joke about whether he's truly their son. His father was one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country, with a highly reputable career. David worked in his father's company as a surveyor, a first class graduate of Covenant University. He was determined to make his parents proud. One day, Oxbridge Construction Company, owned by Mr. Chooks Obi, David's father, initiated a new project in the village. David was assigned as the surveyor for the project, and he was excited about it. He had never been in a rural community all his life, so he eagerly anticipated his trip to the village, the same village where Amaka and her family lived. One hot afternoon, David was at the project site, inspecting the work with the contractors. Meanwhile, Amaka was feeling unwell. She had been weak for days, trying to manage her condition with herbal medicines. However, as her illness worsened, she realized she needed medications and she headed to the village pharmacy. As she walked through the village, she lost her strength. Her legs felt heavy, her eyes were pale, and she knew she needed to rest. Spotting a car parked by the roadside, she crossed over and leaned against it, hoping to regain her strength. David, having finished his work at the site, walked over to his car and was surprised to find a young lady leaning against it. She appeared exhausted and had fallen asleep. He gently tapped her shoulders to wake her up. She was startled and embarrassed, and she quickly apologized, explaining that she was tired and didn't know when she slept off. Noticing how pale she looked, David offered to give her a lift to her destination, but she refused. As she tried to walk, she struggled and eventually collapsed. Her illness had really eaten deeply into her. David immediately rushed to her aid, picking her up and driving her to the nearest hospital. He stayed with her throughout her treatment until she regained consciousness. When Amaka woke up, she was shocked to see David watching over her while she laid on the bed. She asked, "What happened?" And David explained everything. She was grateful for his help. She expressed her concern about not being able to pay the hospital bills, and David reassured her that he has had it covered. She was overwhelmed with gratitude and thanked him repeatedly. David got her her medications and offered to take her home. As they approached her house, Amaka insisted on being dropped off nearby, preferring to walk the rest of the way. David was reluctant. He wanted to ensure she was safe, but she insisted. Before parting ways, he offered her some money, which she accepted, thanking him sincerely for his kindness. The next day, David returned to the site. This time around, he was accompanied by his friend Thompson. After some time at the site, they decided to take a stroll down the village. As they strolled, they encountered Amaka, who was returning from the market. She was carrying a bag filled with items. She greeted David and his friend and thanked David for his help the previous day. David was surprised to see her out and about and asked, "Amaka, what are you doing? You should be resting." The doctor said you shouldn't be doing anything or going anywhere. Amaka replied, "I am fine now. If I don't do this, no one will. I just went to the market to get some foodstuff to cook. David was even more surprised and asked, "What about your parents? Are they aware of your health?" She responded, "They are fine, but they are hardly around." Concerned, David asked again, "Are you sure you're okay, Amaka?" "Yes, I am," Amaka replied and begged to leave. David watched her leave, still amazed at her quick recovery. Thompson was curious and he asked, "Who is she?" And David replied, "That's Amaka. She was the lady I helped yesterday. She was very sick yesterday and I took her to the hospital. Seeing her up and about today is surprising." Thompson nodded. "What do you expect from a village girl? They are very strong in the village. And as she said, she's fine already. So let her be." They continued their stroll, and David couldn't but marvel at her resilience. The next day, David and Thompson drove to the spot where David had previously dropped off Amaka, wanting to check on her. However, they couldn't locate her exact residence, and there was no one around to ask. After waiting for hours, they decided to leave. As they were heading back home, they saw Amaka hawking oranges. They parked their car, came down, and greeted her. She looked extremely tired and pale. Very concerned, David touched her forehead to check her temperature and exclaimed, "You have a fever, Amaka. You haven't fully recovered. Why are you stressing yourself?" Amaka remained silent, her expression questionable. David suggested that they talk in his car, and when they got in, David asked her about her parents. "Amaka, what's really going on with you? What about your parents? Are they sick or what?" Amaka took a deep breath. She was unable to hold back her emotions any longer. Tears welled up her eyes as she began to speak. "My parents do not care about me. They don't care if I'm alive or dead. I have to fend for myself. They don't provide for me, and sometimes they even ask me for money, knowing I don't have a job. They stopped paying my school fees, and I had to quit school. My life has been so difficult growing up, and they are never around. And when they are around, it's from one quarrel to another, fight to another. I am tired. I am exhausted. I wish I can just run away, but unfortunately, I have no one. I'm left alone in this painful world." Amaka spoke with bitterness. David was shocked. He could feel the pains in her voice and see the pains in her eyes. He had never imagined that someone could be treated so poorly by their own family. "I am so sorry, Amaka," he said, his voice filled with empathy. "You don't deserve this." Amaka wiped her tears, looking exhausted but relieved to have shared her burden. David thought for a moment before speaking again. "Where are your parents?" "They are at home," Amaka replied. David gave her an offer. "If you were given the opportunity to continue schooling or work for me, which would you prefer?" Amaka replied, "Work for you, sir. Anything to leave the house. I am mentally and emotionally drained. I can do anything, sir. I can walk, I can clean, I can wash, I can do anything, sir." David felt the eagerness in her to leave the house. "But you need to tell your parents," he said. "You can't just leave like that." "I will tell them," Amaka replied. "That's if they care." Days passed, and Amaka had told her parents about her traveling to Lagos for a job. The day came, and she and David traveled to the city together. She was welcomed into David's family home. David's parents were kind and welcoming, making her feel at ease. Amaka worked diligently as a help. Her job description was to keep the house clean. She quickly learned the routine and became an indispensable part of the household staff. The kindness and respect she received from David's family were new to her, and she began to feel a sense of belonging. She admired the relationship David and his parents had. One weekend, David's cousin, Lipson, visited. He was a charming young man, and from the moment he saw Amaka, he was captivated by her beauty. Lipson found excuses to be around her, helping her with chores and engaging her in conversations. Amaka, though initially shy, found herself enjoying his company. Weeks passed. Lipson decided to confess his feelings to her. He approached her and poured out his heart to her, promising to be the best boyfriend ever if she accepts him. Amaka was dumbfounded. She didn't see this coming, though she liked his company, but it was so soon. She asked, "Sir, I think it's so soon to start developing feelings for me." And Lipsy replied, "It doesn't matter how soon you meet a person, but how your heart races when you see the person. I really love you, Amaka, and I'm for real." Amaka replied, "I would rather we remain as friends for now. I'm not ready for any relationship." Lipson, who was desperate to be with Amaka, assured her that he would wait until she is ready. David noticed the growing friendship between Lipson and Amaka. He hadn't realized it before, but he had developed feelings for her. Seeing Lipson with her stirred something within him. He started to feel jealous. That same day, David called Amaka to his room and confessed his undying love for her. Amaka was surprised. She had never imagined that David liked her that much. She was excited, but at the same time scared. She felt shy to be a girlfriend to David. He was too sophisticated and handsome, and it made her feel inferior. She thanked David for liking her and told him that she's not ready for a relationship. David felt turned down, and he promised to wait for her until she was ready. That day was a lot for Amaka to process. Two cousins asking her out at the same time. She was so scared and didn't know what to do. She continued her daily activities. Days passed and both cousins were busy with work. On a weekend, Lipson spent the whole day with Amaka, helping her out with the chores, laughing and chatting. David saw how clingy he was with Amaka and became very jealous. He started being snobbish towards Lipson and became quiet all of a sudden. The tension between David and Lipson grew as both men were competing for Amaka's attention. They had always been very close. Reason Lipson came to visit David, but their feelings for Amaka began to create a rift between them. The atmosphere in the house became tense, and even David's parents noticed the changes. David confronted Lipson one evening. "Lipson, what are you doing with Amaka? She works for me and you're distracting her. What are your intentions?" Lipson said that David was not happy with his closeness with Amaka and replied, "I care about Amaka and I like her so much. She might be working for you, but that doesn't give you the opportunity to control her life or decide who she speaks to or not." David was torn. He valued his relationship with his cousin, but his feelings for Amaka was real and worth more than their relationship. He struggled with his feelings so as not to hurt Lipson. He walked out of Lipson, giving him strict warning to stay off Amaka. After that confrontation, Amaka sensed the growing tension between David and Lipson and felt caught in the middle. She didn't want to cause problem between the two cousins, valuing their friendliness and closeness before she came into the picture. She decided to speak to the both of them. One evening, she begged for their attention and they honored her. She began, "I want to thank the both of you for your kindness. I have worked here for months and I have loved the relationship you both share. I am not happy with what's going on between you two, and I blame myself for this. I have lived for 22 years in a home where peace and love are far from. Coming here was like a different world entirely for me. The love, the peace, the understanding made me love life. And now, seeing this happen between you two, that have always been loving and kind to yourself, now turning into enemies, is bringing back old memories I have tried to forget. Please, I don't want to be the reason for the conflict between you two. I want you both to give yourself that love and respect you once had for each other. I appreciate both of you. You both asked me for a relationship, and I told you I wasn't ready. I can't be with both of you at the same time, but for the sake of peace to reign and for my happiness, I have decided to accept the one my heart beats for. Lipsin, you've been very kind to me, and I appreciate it. And David, you've been a great source of help to me. You brought me here and gave me a new life. I appreciate you for all you've done. But my heart beats for one person, and I beg that you both respect my decision. David, I feel the same way about you. I have feelings for you. David, whose heart was pounding fast, stood up and hugged Amaka immediately she finished. He thanked her for loving him back. He was so happy and couldn't control himself. Lipson looked heartbroken but nodded, understanding the depth of Amaka's gratitude and feelings for David. He stood up and embraced her. I understand, Amaka. I want you to be happy. And if being with David would make you happy, then I support you both. Lipson turned to David, and they both hugged each other, laughing at themselves and making up. David shared the good news with his parents, and they were happy to see their son happy. They welcomed Amaka into the family with open arms. Amaka became part of the family. She stopped working as a help in their house and was treated as a girlfriend to David. The staff in the house were happy for her, and from that moment, Amaka's life took a new turn. Their relationship blossomed, and David paid for the services of a private tutor for Amaka. They spent more time together, getting to know each other. Amaka felt truly happy and loved. For the first time in her life, she was surrounded by people who really cared about her. Her life had transformed from a village struggling girl into a confident lady with a bright future. And through it all, David stood by her side, providing her with all the love and support that could change her life. They both traveled to the village to visit her parents. Amaka's parents were astonished to see their daughter's life change. They asked for her forgiveness for all the neglects over the years. Amaka forgave them. They expressed their gratitude to David for everything he had done for their daughter. Everyone was happy, and David promised to help improve their lives. Thank you so very much, guys, for watching. Hope you enjoyed this story. Please do also like, share, and subscribe to Substance TV for more amazing stories, movie reviews, recommendations, and trends. See you all in my next video. Until then, stay splendid.